Okay, in this video we're going to cover factorising when there is no common factor. So when the coefficient of x squared is not 1, sometimes we'll also find that there's no common factor. So here we have this expression here, 10x squared plus 3x minus 4. We go through a bit of a checklist when we see a quadratic that we need to factorise. Step 1, is it a coefficient of 1? No, it's not, so we can't just go ahead and factorise it easily. Step 2, is it a common factor? No, none of these values have a common factor that we can factorise out. So that must mean we're doing step 3, which is actually the method I've previously taught you, the grouping method. But we've got to remember, this is the one thing that we forget a lot, is that step 1 we need to multiply A by C. Okay, so the grouping method, multiply the coefficient of x squared by the constant. So 10 times negative 4 is negative 40. So this is actually the value that I'm going to be looking for the factors of that will add to positive 3. So we have 1 and 40, 2 and 20, 4 and 10, 5 and 8. Now, I'm going to use this 5 and 8. Now, we know it's a negative 40, so all along here, I'm going to have a negative on this side or a negative on that side. But once I get down to 5 and 8, I can see that I can get to a 3 if I have a positive 8 and a negative 5. Because when I add those together, I get positive 3. So those are going to be my two factors that I use in the splitting method. So now I rewrite my quadratic with these two factors as my coefficients of x. And I'm left with 10x squared minus 5x plus 8x, and that minus 4 still stays minus 4. It's not minus 40. Okay, we still use the minus 4. It's just that the factor pairs are from that 40, that a times c. Next, I split it and I factorize each equation individually. I can see that I have a common factor of 5 on both of these sides and also an x on both of these sides. So I'm going to factor out 5x. So 5x goes out on outside of my brackets, and then what's left here is 2x. And here, when I factor out these and these, all I'm left with is 1. So I get a minus 1. Okay, on the other side, I can see that I have the highest common factor of 4. Now looking at this, I want to end up with a negative left over inside my brackets. So I'm actually going to divide out a positive 4 on both these sides. When I do that, I've got a 4 on the outside, and inside I have 2x minus 1, and they are both the same. That same checking thing applies here. We know that this is going to be right because I have the same thing in both my bracketed terms. Now all I've got to do is take the outside pairing, and they become my first bracketed term, and I take the inside brackets and they become my second bracketed term, and that is my final solution. This is another way that you can factorize quadratics in any form, but especially with no common factor. It is called the magic x method. So we've got the same expression here as in the previous slide. Okay, so step 1, draw an x. There's our magic x. Step 2, just as before, we need to multiply our a value by our c value, and we write that at the top of the x. That is the term that we're going to find the factors for. At the bottom of the x, we're going to write the coefficient for x, which is 3. Next, we need to still find those coefficients of negative 40 that add to 3, and they get written either side of the x. So we have negative 5 times positive 8 equals negative 40, and negative 5 plus 8 is positive 3. Now we need to turn each of these side terms into fractions by using the coefficient here, a, of x squared as the denominator. So I'm going to write 10 underneath both of those. Finally, I just need to simplify those fractions. So negative 5 over 10 is the same as negative 1/2. And 8 over 10 is the same as 4 over 5. So now I've simplified my fractions. Now the two numerators here, the top numbers, this one and this one, become the constants in our bracketed terms. The two denominators, the 2 and the 5, are the coefficients of the x in our terms. So let's just do that slowly. I have got 4 over 5. I have 4 as my constant here, plus 4. And 5 is the coefficient of x, 5x plus 4. On this side, I have negative 1 over 2. So my negative 1 is my constant. 2 becomes 2x, the coefficient of x.